In this video, we're going to look at the pwd and cd commands. The pwd command shows us where we currently are. The cd command allows us to change the directory. We're going to look specifically at absolute paths and relative paths as they are used with the cd command. Okay, I'm going to start here. I'm in my shell, so I've already logged into the CiderMill server. And I'm going to start with the very first command up here, which is pwd. And what pwd does is it shows us where our current location is from what's known as the root level of the server. So in this case, I'm at /home/s/s, and then of course /s_shaper. So that tells me what my absolute path is to where I'm at right now. Now I'm in my own directory, so if I do ls basically lists the contents of a directory. If I just do ls, you can see that I have a whole bunch of files and folders here. So this is what's known as my home directory, which means that once I log in, it automatically takes me to this directory. You will have a home directory as well. It will be called something different, probably the folder name or something like that you've been provided. But in my case, it's basically just showing me my home directory, which is called /shaper. Now let's take a look at the cd command for a minute, because it's kind of important. So cd stands for change directory. And for example, I have this little playground directory right here. And so if I want to get into that, all I have to do is go cd playground. And now I'm in the playground directory. If I do ls, which lists everything in that directory, you can see I have dir1 and dir2, which are two directories in the playground directory. Now when I do something like cd playground, that's all fine and good. It works just fine. That's kind of known as a relative path. And the reason is because playground here, well actually I should say here, is located inside of /shaper. And since I'm already inside of /shaper, I can just go cd playground and I'm right there. Let me go ahead and back myself out for a second. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to do it through what's known as the absolute path. So you remember my absolute path to /shaper is right here. And I want to get outside of this playground folder here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go /home/s/s /shaper. And now I'm back out of that directory. That's known as an absolute path. Absolute paths are always written from the root level of the server. How do we get to the root level? cd /, that takes us to the root level. If I then hit ls, you can see that these are the root folders. And what I mean by the root folders is they're all the folders that are at the root level. Okay? Don't get confused with this one, which is called root. All right? That is a root folder. What I'm talking about is all the folders here at the root level of the server. Now, as you can see, I have a home folder right here. And that's what was used up here. So now I have home, and if I go into that home folder, I'm going to have something called s. And now I have inside of s another s, and inside of that /shaper. So let me just kind of do that real quick. So if I cd into home and I ls that, you can see that I have all this right here. There's an s right there. So I'm going to go and cd into that s, ls there. There's the other s right there. So I'm going to cd into that s, okay, ls, and then of course there's /shaper right there. And then I'm going to cd into /shaper, and if I go pwd, you can see, again, I went into the home directory, then the s directory, then the s directory, then the /shaper directory, and there I am. Now I'm going to do another command that we haven't learned yet, but it's real simple. It's just clear, and all that will do is just clear my screen. Okay, so I'm back inside my home directory, and I'm using absolute paths, but absolute paths are kind of long paths. Okay, they're a lot to write that you really don't need to do. So we already saw one where I did cd playground, and that got me into my playground. All right, because remember my playground is inside my home directory. If I do pwd here, you can see that I'm home /shaper playground. Now what I want to do is I want to jump out of the playground directory. That's the directory I'm currently in, and I want to go to the /shaper directory right here. Well, to do that, all I need to do is just go cd, but instead of writing the absolute path, which I could do, it's much easier to go .. /. And by going .. /, that means go up one directory. Okay? So if I go ahead and do cd // and hit enter and ls, you can see that now I went into my SShaper directory. I guess a better way to prove that would be pwd, and you can see that's where I'm at. And if I want to go back into the playground directory, as long as that's where I want to go, let's say, for example, I want to go further. I want to go to the playground directory, and I want to go to dir1. Okay? Well, there's nothing in this directory. Oh, wait, I think I might have one file in there. Yeah, I have one file in there. Okay. But you can see that it took me right to it by doing what's known as a relative path. Since I was already in SShaper, I could just hit playground / dir1, and there I am. Okay, so it's nice to be able to use relative links, or relative paths, I'm sorry, than it is to be using absolute paths. Sometimes if you get really stuck, you can always use the absolute path, but the relative path is better. Let's take a look back at this the cd // So I want to go from here, this is where I'm at, and I want to take myself back to SShaper. Well, how do I do that? Well, I just got to get out of dir1. That will put me into playground. And I get out of playground to SShaper. Simple way to do that, cd // just like that, pwd, and there I am into SShaper. Okay, so every time I do .. it basically takes me out of a directory. So let me put myself back into my playground dir1 directory, and let's go ahead and do pwd again so we can see that that's where we're at. Only this time I want to go outside of there, and I want to go into this movies directory that's right here. Now I know that movies is inside of SShaper. Okay, I know that. And so what I need to do is I need to get to movies. So the first thing I have to do is get to SShaper. Well, how do we do that? cd / and then I go ahead and I do movies. Okay, so I went out of this directory to this directory, and then I went back into movies. And if we check, sure enough, there I am at movies. Okay, so this is actually this relative path thing is a really easy shortcut way of doing it. You just have to think about where you're at and where you're going to. And once you understand those two concepts, okay, where am I at and where am I going to, then it all works out really well. Okay, so this is what's known as the relative path as compared to the absolute path, where it doesn't really matter. If you're going to do an absolute path, you can just, it doesn't really matter where you're at because the relationship doesn't matter. So if I wanted to, for example, I wanted to go into my playground directory 1 from movies, because I'm in movies right now, and I want to do from absolute path, all I need to do is go cd / home SShaper, okay, and then type it right here, then playground, and then dir1. Okay, that would be the absolute path to get me there. You notice how I don't really care about where I'm currently at, which is in movies, because I did the absolute path. And if I do this one, there I am. Okay, so that's a little introduction to the cd command, stands for change directory, and the absolute and relative paths. Okay, just to summarize real quick, we went over the pw command, which again shows us where we currently are, what directory we're actually in. The cd command that allows us to change the directory, and we specifically looked at the absolute paths and the relative paths, and we kind of discovered that the relative paths seem to be a little bit easier to type once you understand the relationships. And the other commands that we mentioned in this video was the ls command that shows the contents of a directory that we are in or that we specify. And we'll be looking at that in another video.